So when I sit there and I look, okay, I have to write, 80 minutes of music in 5 weeks, that sounds really difficult. It sounds almost impossible. And believe me, it is, but I'm not going to bother freaking out about it because I've done it before. So it's like, why worry about it if I've done it before? And so it's just not something, but it's still there. It's not a lack of fear. It's just you use experience
Right.
to combat the fear.
This could be like I don't know, the beginning of a dissertation or something like that. It's the same mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if you're going to put any responsibility on the filmmaker's part, I mean, I would just say don't be an a-hole. I mean, that's make the experience enjoyable, and I put that on the composer's back too. Film is hard, the deadlines and the pressure and the money. Making movies is very, very hard. So it's up to the people that are collaborating to make it as enjoyable as you can. Because when it's clicking, when I'm working with a director whom I love to work with, the pressure, the deadlines, none of that matters because we're just having fun. It's like a party, and we're doing what we love to do.
You get to work with people that hopefully you like.
Definitely.
I have not been in the situation yet where I have to work with people that I dislike just for a paycheck. I haven't. Luckily, I've finagled enough and maneuvered enough to not be in that place. But yeah, like filmmaking is difficult enough as it is getting all these parts to line up correctly. Like you don't want to add somebody just being, a butthole on top of that unnecessarily to the chaos. Like that is an unnecessary problem to have to deal with. Yeah,
definitely, and that's what it boils down to. I mean, if as long as you're a cool cat and you're just enjoying the process too, and I personally I love, especially with first time filmmakers, I love it when they get a little stressed out and a little nervous. They're going crazy. I like to be the one to assuage them and come in and be like, hey, we're cool. Like this is gonna be great, and I have a really positive attitude. Yes. Yeah, so I love to have that responsibility where I can kind of come in and then make filmmakers comfortable about the process because I love the process personally. So I try to impart upon them how enjoyable it is, and generally it works. Generally, I get a lot of repeat directors, so I would imagine I'm pleasant to work with. So I don't know.
Awesome.
So what kind of advice would you give to the future John Williams?
Well, the first one I said, again, the importance of watching movies is still not to be understated. The other thing I like to talk about is that, and this is both an advantage and a disadvantage depending on who you are, and that's don't get bogged down in how do I become a film composer. There's really no set path to becoming a film composer. You can put 100 composers in a room and ask them, how did you get to where you are? How did you get to be a film composer? And you get 100 different answers.
Right.
Don't think that there's this set path that you have to be on. And wait a minute, I'm not on this path, so how am I going to get there? There's no such thing. So now that could be scary to a lot of people because some people need a set path in life in order to achieve their goals. And if you're like that, I'll admit you're going to have some challenges because there is no set path. Now, if you're a little bit like me, I like to pave my own way. I'm, blaze my own trail and trial and error and try this and moving to Austin was a big part of that. Like everybody I knew was moving to LA. Hey, I'm going to go move to Austin. It was just my gut instinct. And so I think people like that are going to excel in this because they'll find a new way. They'll find a different way that nobody else has tried before.
Right.
So I like to stress that don't get bogged down that there's this set path that there isn't, and go find your own. People ask me, do I need to go to, like I went to Berklee, I got a degree in film scoring. Somebody comes up to me, do I need to do that? I'm the first to say, definitely not. I don't think a director has ever cared that I went to Berklee and got a degree in film scoring. I don't think, I was never aware of the fact that was important to them. They hear my
I've never been asked one time for any kind of credentials for literally
no academic
anything that I do.
Right.
which is it's kind of crazy when you think about it. It's like no one's ever cared if I went to film school.
Yep.
No one's ever even asked you any degree of any sort whatsoever. Every now and then, sometimes they don't even ask for my reel, which I think that's crazy. But like, normally that's like if it's a referral, they may just assume I know what I'm doing and they don't ask for reel. But at most, that's all I ever get asked for. Can I see your reel? Can I see that you know how to do it? If you know how to do it, good to go.
And that's exactly right. And so, and I didn't go to Berklee for the credential. I went there, for the knowledge and the experience. And I got exactly that. And I wouldn't be here today had I not done that. It was a big part of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But that doesn't have to be somebody else's path. I mean, that was just my personal path. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, when it comes down to it, all you got to do, if you're a composer, you got to find somebody that's making a movie that likes your music, and that is.
I mean, no knock on education. It's just that at the end of the day, keep on, get the skills, and don't stop learning.
Yes.
I mean, just because you got this whatever, that doesn't mean you got this whatever, and I'll just truck along doing the same thing. No, keep on going your craft. Keep on accelerating.
And do you find that a lot of the people that go to school for music and scoring, etc., that they're already, like, these are people who I would think are already making music, right? Like, they're already practicing the craft. Like, I can't imagine waiting to go to school to engage. Is that correct?
Yes and no. I mean, film music is a hard thing to study on your own, per se. It's a hard thing to just jump into, although lots of people have. I know, see, I was back, it was in the mid-90s when I went to Berklee, so I was trying my best to study film music on my own and do as much educating as I could. And then when I got to Berklee, I kind of understood a little bit of what they're saying, but that's where everything just exploded as far as education goes. It's a very mysterious craft, and so it can be a struggle to just pick it up along the way. But many composers have been successful in doing that. It's not a rare story to hear. There's a joke that composers have that anybody that plays 3 chords on a guitar thinks they can be a film composer, and we joke about that, but there's a lot of truth in that. I mean, I know some composers that aren't that quote unquote musical, but they're scoring films. It's has so much more to do with, first of all, personality and film knowledge.
Right.
Film knowledge will definitely supersede music knowledge to be in the area of film composing.
So no one kind of tell a story.
Tell a story, yes.
Tell a story.
No screenwriting, no editing, no direction. That's more important than knowing counterpoint, orchestration, or harmony. I mean, it's a strange thing to admit and think about, but that's where the success of film composers lie. It's their knowledge of film more than their knowledge of music.
Okay.
Really?
Well, that's more than just good to know. Now, looking at your IMDb, I know you said it, but wow, this thing is crazy.
Well, that's not even everything. I mean, not everything got on IMDb, for whatever reason. But I've been doing this for professionally 22 years, and then 3 or 4 years beyond that when I was at school. So, and it's been my sole focus, professionally. I haven't had a quote unquote day job since 2001. So it's been my sole means of earning a living since that time, and with highs and lows along the way. It's not been steady and it's not been easy. It's been very, very difficult, but I wouldn't want it any other way. So
good. No,
I'm actually curious about the business side of this as well. I mean, we're always gonna give people some tips. So I know people go about this a number of different ways. I know that everybody's been to Incompetech and used the Kevin MacLeod track in the shorts. And I know Kevin has an entire database of all kinds of music, and then he does stuff that's custom. Do you think that is a efficient way of doing business? Is that the way that's most common for people in the industry to start making a living? What are some tips for people getting started financially to have success?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, and it's the toughest part of the career. There's no doubt about it. Is the business side of things. I kind of feel like I have the filmic skills down. I have the music skills down.
Yeah.
It's the business skills that I don't know, struggle with. I mean, I struggle with. I mean, it's the hardest part. It's the marketing. You know, I'm the product and the CEO.
Right.
I'm the salesman and the product, and I've got to push myself, and that's always difficult. I've got to compete with, you know, other composers out there, and I've got to, you know, get my music out there so that directors can hear it. I told you earlier, all you got to do is find somebody making a movie that likes your music. Well, that's easy. It is. That's all, because all it takes. But the hard part is, now let's go find somebody making a film and get them to hear my music. And that's a very difficult process.
So the whole networking is a good part of that.
Networking is a great part of that. And then there's like the financial things, taxes and all that stuff, which is, you know, my least favorite. All of that other hardcore business. I'm a creative, right? I want to create. So the other half of my brain, which is the business model of it, is the part that I'd rather not deal with, but it's essential. And business cannot be a 4-letter word if you want to do this. It cannot be a hobby. If you want to make a living, if you want it to be a hobby, more power to you. It's a great hobby. You'll if you have a day job that supports you, and you want to score films on the side, man, you'll be able to do it to your heart's content, because there's so much of opportunities for that. If you want to make a living at it, you want to turn your hobby into a career, business can't be a 4-letter word. And you have to start doing things like set a minimum fee, turning projects down because they don't pay enough. That's hard, because I just want to write music, you know, especially for great projects. Like, I wish I could not care about the money and just write for fun, but I can't. You know, I decided to do this as a career, so I have to set a minimum fee. And if a project comes along, doesn't pay enough, I have to turn it down. It's heartbreaking, because I'd rather just write it. But so those are really, really difficult parts of the business. And I think for everybody, that musicians are not naturally business minded. I know in Austin, business is kind of a 4-letter word with musicians, and it can't be. You really have to embrace it and make business decisions, like turning down projects that don't pay enough. That's a business decision. That's not a creative decision.
One of our sound guys, he was making. I remember being with him in a meeting before we had a company, and he used to make beats for people. And he met with his rapper back home, clean. Everybody's a rapper, and he plays the guy's album. It's probably 10 or 15 tracks, and the guy is, you know, doing it for a cause, he's got some sort of a program for youth, and my friend is going to just give him the whole album. He's not asking for credit. He didn't ask for like nothing. Like, he's going to give him, and I'm looking at him going, like, how long did it take you to make all that music? Oh, you know, it took, you know, so many days per track or whatever. I mean, you're going to just hand it over? Like, you don't want anything, like a love offering, donation. You don't want, like, your name in the, like, nothing. We don't want any attribution whatsoever. And it was crazy, but it's what you're talking about. Like, he's a creative, and he isn't looking at this from a business perspective of, oh, how much did Fruity Loops cost you? How much did the computer you ran it on cost you? You're going to wear that stuff out. You have to re-up on that gear. You have to practice. And this, how much time? And then, I mean, at the time we weren't married, right? But now, you know, I'm married, for instance. Whatever I do creatively, like, it has to be worth leaving my wife at the house to go hang out with you guys. And she's not wanting me to leave the house. So to her, it also has to be worth her time that I left the house. So doing, you know, umpteen million free projects, like, we had a whole conversation about that, because she was like, hey, you like spending a lot of time out there. These people aren't paying you at all what they should be paying you. You're doing too much free work. So, I mean, we all end up going through that time where we have to start to make those adjustments. And sometimes, because you're creative and it's fun, you want to help people, and they got good hearts and have this awesome project, you just want to be involved. But it's like, well, when I'm doing that, I'm not making money, and it means I'm not paying bills. So
Yeah. And I've had that same experience. I'm married as well, and I even have 2 children, and it compounds even further when kids are coming to the family. You're right. I mean, yeah. I mean, and I tell you, it's funny because I remember right before we were going to go ahead and start a family and have children, it's like, obviously I had the same fear, like, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not financially in a place yet, and I'm not ready in my career yet. Well, that's always going to be true, no matter when you start having kids. You're never going to be ready. But I tell you, I thought as scared as I was, it actually turned out to be the kick in the pants that I needed to really make those really sound, better business decisions. I mean, I struggled to do that before kids came into the picture, and when they did, it was just because then there's no messing around. Like, okay,
it's clear.
Yeah, I can't do this. It's not that I don't want to do this project. I literally can't do this project because if I do this project for that amount, then I'm gonna have to go get a job, somewhere else, and I can't write music for anybody. So it's
exactly.
That's the tough part. But it's always nothing I hate more than turning down a project for any reason.
Have you had a good experience with people offering you points in the back end?
I've had people offer that, and there's been a few contracts where I've had that offered as a bonus. Like I still have to have the financial obligations fulfilled up front. If they want to sweeten the deal with that, sure, we can talk about that. And I'll do that. But I've never done a project for only back end. I'm very realistic on movies. Not only are hard to make, however hard movies are to make, and they're very hard. They're 1,000 times harder to make money on. Very, very, very few microscopic slice of movies actually make a profit. So I'm very realistic about that. So if they want to sweeten a deal, great, but I can't rely on that.
I've started to. I mean, I still, when it's people I like, or I just have like a gap, maybe I'll be willing to do some stuff.
Sure.
But now, even because we're starting to get into the distribution space and all that, I'll ask people straight up, like, so what's the marketing plan? Like, what do you mean? If you're going to give me points, are these net points? Are these gross points?
Right.
How are you going to make the money back that you're telling me I'm supposed to get a cut of? Can I be involved in that process? Is there a plan? Because a lot of times I've talked to independent filmmakers nowadays, like, we're going to take it to the festivals and get it at Sundance or something like that, and then we're going to get a deal. And I'm like, well, that's not really... Those odds are not great, which means the odds of me getting paid are very, very slim.
Right. And if they want to sweeten that pot, that's a great sweetener. But you're right. All the contracts I've ever signed that had any back end portion to it, none of them have paid out anything. So that's fine. That's not the reason why I did it. So I adequately paid up front, was able to do the score, very happy with how it turned out.
That's awesome.
So do you have any future projects you want to promote?
So this year has been interesting. Obviously, with COVID hitting and everything, everybody in this business is kind of figuring out what they've been doing and what they're doing. And I'm kind of in that position too. I've been lucky enough to at least tread water. I don't think I'm thriving at this time like a lot of people aren't, but I've been treading water. I just completed a short film just a couple days ago. I've got another one on the horizon, a lot of little projects here and there. But the fortuitous thing is I mentioned earlier that I write about film music, and I'm writing my first book right now. And I signed the deal about a year ago.
Okay.
And I tell people I picked a great year to write my first book because
you have time to.
This COVID thing has really been a great environment for writing a book. It's called The Music of Friday the 13th. And I'm a diehard Friday the 13th fan. I'm a horror fan in general, but the Friday the 13th films are very near and dear to me. And so I'm writing a comprehensive book on all 12 movies. There's video games. I mean, everything. Friday fans are completists, so I want to, no stone left unturned. Everything you've ever wanted to know about the music from the whole franchise, I'm putting into a book. It's about at least halfway, maybe 55, 60% of the way done.
Good.
So, could be out early next year.
Is there going to be an audiobook version? And if there will be, Who
I
are
can do
you
the sound.
scoring?
That's it.
Right here.
Right there, yeah. I think there's something there was something in the contract about an audiobook, but that's like step 10,000. I'm still on step 600. So
Well,
Hey, put
if
a
it
word in.
happens, just say
okay,
if it happens, what about scoring the audiobook?
that would be interesting.
I've never seen that before.
I'd have to think about the audiobook because there's a lot of music examples in the audiobook, and that there gets to be some clearance issues with that, and I'm not sure how that works, but I have to think about that. Yeah, it makes it interesting.
Jason kicks down the door.
Yeah.
She screams.
There's a lot of great music in that franchise.
Yeah, actually, they did because they talk about horror specifically. Is the one that the music. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard people say that it's the one where music is the most critical. Where if you kill the
Yeah.
sound, it
Oh sure,
or scoring and all the effects. Like if you kill the sound, it stops being a scary movie.
yeah, and that's definitely true. But on the flip side of that, it's like horror is like the easiest genre to score. I mean, it's just
Really?
a large playground. It's so much fun from a composer's perspective. Horror is just an absolute blast because it's really hard to mess it up unless you're just trying to do something so wackadoo out of the box, and an experiment that fails. It's hard to mess up horror because whereas one of the tougher genres, comedy, action, those get to be fairly laborious and difficult. Comedy is probably the hardest to score,
Hmm.
but horror is just I call it the biggest playground for a composer, and it's just a lot of fun to you can just come up with all kinds of crazy, weird, screechy sounds or disturbing sounds, and you throw it in there, and it's already working. It's very hard to mess up.
So I did have a question. If you could give us an example, I don't know if there's a quick way to do this, but the path of being, someone who makes music for pop idols and consumption, and someone who scores movies and composes for movies. Is there like a short version of the difference, like a way you can condense the differences between these two? Like an example, like here's how I'd handle 16 seconds in this versus how we handle with someone who made a track. Like, is there any way you can
Yeah,
distill that?
and again,
Mhm.
when I went to Berklee, I was a film scoring and composition major, so I represented those two different things you're talking about, like the film scoring. There's the film scoring half of me, and there's the composition half of me, which is just composing for me, composing what I want. And the biggest difference between the two is going back to film. I talk about it. I love the collaborative process. Music is only a slice of the completed art form. The movie is the art, and your music is only a slice of the whole art. Meanwhile, experts in a lot of different fields are also contributing their craft to create the complete art form.
Right.
Now, when you're creating music on your own, when I'm writing pieces for myself, or again, pop artists are writing songs and releasing albums, that's the complete art form. The song, the album, their music. There's no other. It's not a portion of the art. It's the complete art. So that's the biggest difference, and that alone makes a lot of the creative decisions, a lot of the function behind the music differently. It's probably the thing that perpetuates the differences the most. Now, a lot of it does have common ground though, but it's mostly the function and the discipline and the purpose behind the existence of the music that separates it.
Got it.
Okay. Well, any parting thoughts, Ben?
I feel like I'm trying to think. Is there anything we should have been asking you? That actually, you know what? Someone sent me a question. Let me pull it up. Someone did just ask me something about it. It's gonna take me a minute to pull this up. Give me a second.
No problem.
Okay. Oh, hey Brian, I'm just happy to have you on here. We're always happy to have professionals, working professionals that are not only good in their craft, but also like to extend their knowledge out to the world, which we've done for quite some time.
I do like to do that. You better be careful. I could be here for 5 more hours. So yeah,
So can we. So yeah,
I do
we
like
gotta
to
get
do
off.
that.
Well, Dietrich Gales of Melissa Blade Entertainment has said he curious of your inspiration, like what inspires you, and what you actually use to score with.
Okay.
The tools, okay.
Good question. So from a film composer perspective, the inspiration comes from the movie. I mean, hands down. I told you about the "just do it," story where I was having the blank camera syndrome. I mean, all of the answers, all the struggles that I had, the answers were all in the film, and of course that extends to the director and the vision that the director has for their movie. But that's kind of what makes film scoring a little bit easier than, again, just composing for myself. When I'm composing in a concert piece for myself, it's a lot harder because it's the complete art form. Whereas scoring for film, I'm just adding my slice to it. It's a little bit easier for me. But all the inspiration comes from the movie itself. And that's why film scoring has more to do with film than it does with music. Because if you're not reading into the film, if you're not getting those hints, I like to say all the time that when I watch a movie for the first time and I've talked to the director and I know it and there's no music on it, the music is already there. I just have to listen to the film and give it what it wants. You know what I mean? Like the film is speaking to me and it's saying, hey, I need something here. This is what I need you to do. And I'm like, I just listen to the movie and let it tell me what it needs. So the tools that I use it's pretty common between what a lot of composers use. I'm a Mac guy, so I use Logic. I've used Logic Pro since 2008. I switched over. I used to use Digital Performer in the first 10 years of my career, and I switched over to Logic in 2008. I have most of I use Finale for notation, which I do a lot of. I do a lot of live music whenever I can. I try to have some live tracks somewhere in my scores, even if the whole thing is electronic. I try to bring a human performer to it as much as I can. If I'm writing out a lot of parts, Finale. Contact, the sampling software Contact. I use Omnisphere. I use Mach 5. I haven't invested in just a huge, massive, expensive orchestral library. I tend to not want to do that creatively. I am an orchestral composer, but if I do orchestra, I want it to be as live as possible. I don't do a lot of the synth orchestra stuff. I can do it. It's creatively confining. Like, I just don't like how confining working with a big orchestral sample library is. So I just tend to steer away from projects that don't do that. But yeah, that's about the bulk of what I use.